What is up, everybody? Bobby here, the Nintendo Guru, and today we are doing our time-lapse video of the museum. It has been, man, such a long time in the works and the comings and everything that goes along with it. It literally took me 10 days to build this thing to entirety. That's just based on destroying previous inclines and bridges and then adding in new inclines and bridges. It was a process. It took a lot of planning, a lot of time, and I started out with a sketch. That was the first thing I did. But let me back it up before I jump too far ahead of myself. I want to explain why I did what I did with the museum. And originally I had created this big epic entrance into the museum, mainly because I feel like the museum, for me, when it equates to Animal Crossing, it is such an integral part to the entire game for me. Ever since the GameCube version, I have always been one of those people that needs to go in, needs to try to complete everything that I possibly can, always complete the fish catalog, the bug catalog, the fossil catalog. Not so much the art in the previous games, but those, once I completed those ones, I was happy and I felt like, yeah, I kind of completed the game in my own mind. That was always the forefront in my mind, was trying to get the museum to where I was happy with the way things were and the way they looked. Nintendo knocked it out the park with this museum. They have taken it up a whole nother level. And with that, I felt like, man, if this is the focal point, if this is what everything is based upon, I need to treat my museum as if this was the be-all, end-all in the game that Nintendo's making it. Everything is focused around the museum in this game. When we play this game, you start off and the whole process is, if you want to advance the game, you need to advance the museum. You need to get the museum brought in, and that seems to be the focal point of the game. So I felt like if Nintendo is giving this much care to the museum, because I mean, let's be honest, when you go in the museum, it is a whole other level compared to the other games. I felt like if this is the focal point of the game, if this is the majestic, grand thing within the game, I needed to make my entrance just as grand as what Nintendo was offering to me with the museum. So I started off originally wanting to just do something where I had like a bridge that kind of went in to the museum and like this waterfalls running down the side, and then these kind of peaceful areas where you could sit and look at the waterfalls coming over the sides of the museum. And then I started adding a couple of fossils in, and I thought, this is kind of cool. This can take it to another level. And then I was sitting in my living room one day and I just started to get this image in my head. And I've always had this thing where I tend to draw. I used to draw a lot when I was a younger kid. And I get these things where something gets stuck in my head and I have to get it out on paper and pen. I have to literally sit down with a piece of paper and pen and get it out of my head, because if I don't, it will just bother me for days and weeks until I finally sit down and draw this. I kept coming up with this idea for the museum in my head and I couldn't shake it. I couldn't get it out, and I was like, all right, you're gonna have to do this. I know you just built this massive thing. You're going to have to build it again. You're going to have to do this all over again. So starts with the teardown. The teardown was very scary, but what we're going to see in the end result here is exactly what I drew in my sketch. Like, it's crazy when I look at this and I go, I can't believe that I was able to pull this off with just a sketch, just literally just drawing something out and then going like, okay, here we go, let's make it happen. Now, obviously I added things and made things better, but in my mind, there's focal points that I wanted. I wanted two bridges coming in on the sides. I wanted waterfalls coming down the sides, waterfalls to remain in the back, and then a big T-Rex in the middle. As we move on, things will change, and you'll see that I added stuff and made massive changes to the original plan. But another thing that made me want to do this was I could not line up my bridge going into the museum. Originally, I had a platform come up and then a bridge go over a little river, and that was supposed to be like the bridge goes over and it lands right in the middle of the museum entranceway, and it would not do it. The bridge and the doorway is just, they're different sizes, and it was always off. No matter what I did, it was off just a bit, and it got to the point where I was getting very just OCD kicking in hardcore, as every time I would go into the museum, it would bug me. And finally I got to the point where I was just like, all right, something's got to change. And I think that's where my head started to think, like, okay, what can we do differently here? What can we do to make this totally different on all kinds of levels? And I think when I sit now and I look at what I was able to accomplish, I think my greatest happiness comes from the fact that I was able to integrate my 3 favorite dinosaurs growing up as a kid. T-Rexes, I think when I was in school, when I was a little boy, T-Rex was the be all end all. I know now that the Raptors are pretty popular, but for me, the T-Rex was the big, like, he was the big daddy. He was the king of everything. He was like a lion during the dinosaur era. So for me, it was like T-Rex, I gotta have a T-Rex out there. And then also, I always loved the Triceratops just because it felt like he had like a ring or a shield around his head with horns coming out of his face to fight and ward off enemies. And then the Stegosaurus. I like the Stegosaurus because the fins that were on his back reminded me of a shark as a kid. And then the tail with the spikes, and it would whip the tail, and it would whip its enemies with the tails. It's funny because now that I think back as a young boy, these animals, these dinosaurs always got me excited as a kid, and it made your mind just take off and wander as a young boy. And as I'm able to take my 3 favorite dinosaurs now and implement them into the museum as the outer parts of it, as like an entranceway, it's just amazing to me, and it really makes me happy to be able to do this. Also, the couple of things that I was able to implement that were add-ons at the end was the shark, and that piece came from Nookazon. Basically, the reason why I went to Nookazon was because I looked at this and I was like, I'm not going to be able to get a shark. There's no way, because there aren't sharks out yet. So let me just go on there, and I was able to buy it for relatively cheap. I bought it for like 68,000 bells, which it might be overpriced or whatever, but it was able to finish off what I wanted to do and get this thing looking sharp. Also, shout out to Nintentalk. I had watched one of his videos, and in it he had done these panels to showcase what's in the museum, and I kind of liked that, and I thought, okay, we're going to put 2 of those on either side of the doors, but I also want to put the T-Rex one in front of T-Rex. So I was able to get these patterns off of the internet and implement them into my game, and I feel like it sets it off a little bit more and makes it a little bit better. Also, we have some statues that I was able to acquire, some stone statues from people that were in my community, which I thank them all the time for being so gracious and kind and helping me out to do the things I want to do. I just like everything about this. I like the floor lights. I think the floor lights really set things off when it gets to nighttime. So before I go and I let you just enjoy this, do me a favor. If you like this, please hit the like button down below. Share it with your friends. If you're not a subscriber to the channel, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell so you know what's going on around here. Thank you for all the support. Thank you for the love. Enjoy the video.